Hi, welcome to the video on the effects of climate change. In this video, I will give a brief overview of the different effects of climate change and give you some ideas and resources for examples. Let's get started with the first example or first effect of climate change, loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity means having many different types of plants, animals, and other living things in particular habitats on Earth. These living things are different in the types of species, genetic variations within the species, and ecosystems. Biodiversity is important because different plants and animals depend on one another. Because of climate change, certain plants and animals are in danger of becoming extinct. As a result, there are fewer types of plants and animals, and a loss in biodiversity. If you want to explore more about biodiversity, here are some helpful videos. You can access all of the videos in the Google slide presentation from this video. The first video is what is biodiversity? The second video is called Biodiversity is Collapsing Worldwide. Here's why. The third video is how does climate change affect plants and animals? And the last video, ecological impacts of climate change. You don't have to watch all of the videos, but you can pick and choose and explore some of these videos if you want to learn more about biodiversity. Let's go on the second effect, which is altered ecosystems, changes to populations, habitats, food chains, migrations, hibernations, nesting sites, etc. Let's first define ecosystem. Ecosystem is defined as a community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. Now, when we say organisms, we're referring to living things. So that can be plants, animals, and bacteria, fungi, and mold. So for example, when we say interacting organisms, the animals and plants in the picture to the right are all a part of this forest ecosystem. In this picture, you have deer and wolves. The wolves eat the deer, and the deer eat the grass. That's examples of interactions. Also, the butterflies help to pollinate the grass and flowers, which feed both the bunny and the deer. Now we're talking about altered ecosystems. So what does the word altered mean? Altered means something has changed. When an ecosystem is altered, there is a change in the ecosystem. Because the plants and animals in an ecosystem are connected, changing one part of the ecosystem can have an impact on other parts of the ecosystem. To give a brief example of what is meant by change, a change can be an animal becoming extinct or endangered due to disease or lack of food and resources. So let's take a closer look at that through a food web example. Food chains and food webs show the transfer of food energy in an ecosystem. Food chains and food webs are useful because you can predict and explain what will happen to other organisms in the ecosystem if one organism's population decreases. So here we have a food web that shows grass, a grasshopper, bluebird, snake, owl, and some mushrooms. Take a moment to look at this food web and see if you can make sense about what it means. So in this food web, or food chain in this case, the grasshopper eats the grass. And then the grasshopper is eaten by the bluebird, which is eaten by the snake, which is eaten by the owl. And then the owl, when the owl dies, along with the other animals, they're decomposed by the mushrooms, which help to make grass. So let's say, for example, if the bluebird in this food web begins to die off, maybe due to disease or some other impact of climate change. The snake will have little food to eat and will either die off as well or change their diet by eating more of another type of animal, or move out of the ecosystem into another ecosystem. Now, if the snake dies off or moves out of the ecosystem, this could mean the owl, which eats the snake, has less to eat as well. And so therefore we can see from this food web, or this food chain, that changes to one part of the ecosystem, so change by removing the bluebird from the ecosystem, can change or impact other parts of the ecosystem, because everything is interconnected. Now, one last thing before we go into some video resources is I just want to emphasize that there are different types of ecosystems. So ecosystems in different geological regions or in different places on Earth are called biomes, each with different types of plants and animals living there. Here are some examples. You can pause the video now and read over the different types of biomes. Now, some plants and animals are specialized to live in that biome only. For example, a cactus plant would not survive in a tropical rainforest because it has evolved to live in dry conditions like in a desert. Therefore, if climate change impacted the desert so that it becomes more like a tropical rainforest, then cacti plants may die off. Here are some helpful videos if you want to explore more about altered ecosystem. How does climate change impact plants and animals? Ecological impacts of climate change. Once again, you can access these videos through the Google slide presentation. The next effect is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is the increase in the amount of acid in the ocean. Ocean acidification is caused by increased amounts of CO2 dissolved in the oceans, which creates carbonic acid. Acids, like carbonic acid, are corrosive chemicals that can destroy shells of shellfish and coral reefs, thus impacting marine ecosystems. As a visual of how acids can destroy something like shellfish and coral reefs, you can watch this video, Dissolving Eggshell with CO2, in which an eggshell is dissolved in carbonic acid made from dry ice in water. Remember, dry ice is just solid CO2. And if you want to explore more in general about ocean acidification, watch this video on ACE Science Short, Ocean Acidification. Droughts and heat waves. A drought is a long period of time with little precipitation, which can include rain or snow, in a particular area. A heat wave is a time when temperatures are higher than usual, and that can last for a few days to a few weeks. Now, both the droughts and heat waves can be dangerous and deadly to wildlife and humans. Scientists believe that climate change has been linked to longer, more frequent, and more intense droughts and heat waves. Similarly, we can discuss storms, natural disasters, changes to weather patterns as an effect of climate change. So like droughts and heat waves, weather patterns are becoming more extreme. For example, there are more severe wildfires, hurricanes, and other storms than ever before. Scientists again believe this is due in part to climate change. So for videos on droughts and heat waves and storms and natural disasters and changes to weather patterns, you can watch Does Climate Change Cause Extreme Weather? And Why Climate Change Makes Extreme Weather Worse. Again, you can access these through the Google Slides presentation. The next effect we'll discuss is flooding, sea level rise, storm surge, flooding. Rising global temperature is melting the Earth's ice. As ice melts into the sea, it causes sea levels to rise. Rising sea levels can lead to greater storm surges and flooding. In addition, as sea levels rise, some countries and cities that are below or near sea level may be underwater in the future. To learn more about flooding, sea level rise, storm surge flooding, watch Hidden Impacts of Climate Change. Disease, parasites, or infestation pests. Climate change has been linked to increase in the spread of diseases and pests. A common example includes mosquito-borne illnesses like dengue fever, which have spread to different parts of the world due to climate change. And specifically, this is because as the world warms up, mosquitoes are moving into places that were once too cold for them to survive. And in some cases, they're moving out of places that used to have perfect conditions for them because now those places are getting too hot for them to survive. So if you want to learn more about how climate change is linked to diseases, parasites, infestations, or pests, you can watch How Climate Change Can Impact Mosquito-Borne Illnesses. And for a more general view, how climate change affects community health. Melting ice, sea ice, glaciers, and ice sheets release methane and alter albedo, etc. Albedo is a term used to describe how reflective a surface is. Ice and snow reflect light and have a high albedo. As sea ice, glaciers, and ice sheets melt, there is less ice on Earth to reflect solar radiation. As a result, more solar radiation is absorbed by the Earth, which in turn increases the temperature on Earth. So here we can see a diagram that shows the sun radiating down on an open ocean. The open ocean has a low albedo number, and so much of that radiation gets absorbed. About 0.94 out of 1, so that's 94% gets absorbed. And only about 6% will get reflected. On the other hand, where you have an ocean that has a sheet of ice on it with no snow, then about 50% of the solar radiation gets absorbed and 50% gets reflected. However, when you have an ice sheet with snow on top, then about 90% of that solar radiation gets reflected and only 0.1% gets absorbed. So what happens when the ice melts? Well, when the ice melts, you're going to have more either bare ice or open ocean. And that means more solar radiation will be absorbed by the Earth, thus warming the Earth up. That is why melting ice has been known to increase the rate of global warming and climate change. Because the more ice that melts due to global warming, the more solar radiation is absorbed, and then the higher the temperature. This is known as a positive feedback loop, and we can see that here. increasing temperature melts the ice, which means more radiation is absorbed, which increases the temperature and continues to melt the ice. For more information on this positive feedback loop and melting ice, watch How Arctic Warming Changes Ice Albedo, animation from NASA, and Arctic Amplification, How the Albedo Effect Speeds Up Global Warming. Human health effects and access to food and water. Climate change is impacting human access to food and fresh water. As a result, many people may face starvation. And as a side note, this is leading to migrations of people out of their home countries to find access to food and water. For more information on this, you can watch Climate Health Connection, Food and Water Insecurity, Climate Change and Food Security Full Documentary, Climate Change and Food Security, How Climate Crisis Threatens World's Food Supply and Land, Fresh Water and Climate Change, How Climate Affects Community Health. Once again, you do not need to watch all of these videos, but you might want to explore them for more information. As a final reminder, all of the videos that are presented here can be accessed from the Google Slides. I hope you found this video helpful and you're able to use it to not only get a better sense of which effects you want to choose, but also how to describe these effects and identify an example that you can use for these effects. All right, that's it for this video. Have a quality day.